Hello, I'm Shieldwall100 and welcome back to my games channel. Today I'm going to be showing off my brand new Macedonian army on the fast track for collection to completion since the Broadside show earlier this year. The rule set used will be Hail Caesar. At the time of Alexander the Great's invasion of the Persian Empire, his attack was billed as a unified Greece avenging historic predations by the ancient adjacent superpower and liberating Greek cities under tyrannical rule. However, things were not necessarily as clear-cut as this. Alexander's father Philip had established his hegemony over Greece in the time-honoured tradition of browbeating any city-state alliances that challenged him, and his son had continued this before setting off on his epic expedition. Dissent was punished, with thieves notably being razed to the ground. I guess there's a reason he wasn't recorded to history as Alexander the Nice, so that Macedonian rule would not be in dispute while the king was away. Nonetheless, after he was gone, leaving the general Antipater to look after homeland security, anti-Macedonian sentiment did begin to surface, ancient Greece never wanting to remain unified for long. It is in one of these rebellions that I shall be setting today's game. As Alexander conquered the vast territories of Asia, he captured Persian treasuries the like of which Greeks had not even conceived. Much was sent back to Greece, and I can only surmise that envious were the eyes of those on the outside of Macedonian favour. A transport vessel carrying a substantial quantity of loot has been grounded in an area of Greece outside of immediate Macedonian control. As if blessed by the gods themselves, pro-independence demagogues were in a position to seize the goodies and use the wealth to force their local political enemies out of the city. The army was raised, militia called in for training, and mercenaries hired. Antipater has dispatched a sizable force to regain the money and crush the uprising. The successful resistance against the Macedonian army could ignite support amongst other city-states, and further deliveries of ex-Persian riches would be intercepted. Meanwhile, the Greek rebels know that they will get little mercy if defeated. The stakes are indeed high today. First, let's show off the new army, not seen in battle before. I've gone for all of the classic Macedonian themes, starting with the indomitable phalanx, the invincible beast. 3 units in one division, accompanied by hypaspists to safeguard their flank, form the dense core of this task force. Adding punch is the cavalry division, consisting of companions, the Salian medium, as well as 2 light cavalry units, one of which being the fearsome prodromoi with their lances. A division of light infantry completes the army, in this case the fearsome Thracians hired for the battle and converted specially from various Victrix kits. Truly the army is a Hellenistic dream team, Philip of Macedon having truly dialed into the ancient Greek meta of having longer sticks and deeper ranks than the other guys. The Greek rebels matched the 3 Macedonian divisions with 3 of their own. First, the armed forces of the city-state itself, comprising a mixture of levy and regular hoplites along with supporting units of peltasts and skirmishing javelinmen. The armies of this time period have moved on from being so heavily dominated by the hoplite, so I thought it would be good to have more of the lighter troop types than usual, although these units are small in size. Next is the mercenaries paid for by stolen coin. These are all veteran status and capable troops backed up by their own skirmishers, including slingers. Last but not least is a slightly hodgepodge division of Greek cavalry, light and medium, along with more peltast heavy light infantry. Although mobile, these are all small units and lack the punch of the Macedonians. Here we are with deployment complete. The Macedonians have encountered their opponents set up in what seems to be a defensive position, with their mercenary hoplites blocking the road, while the lesser citizenry are deployed forward to take advantage of a walled field, no doubt seeking to bolster their spirits. The Greek cavalry contingent are nowhere to be seen. Moving around the table, we can see the Macedonian army in the midst of deploying for this showdown. The fearsome Sarissa phalanx takes the foremost position, subtlety not being needed when you're the hegemon. Behind you can see the hypaspists in column ready to intervene where necessary, and the Thracian contingent arriving. The Macedonian cavalry takes the right of the army. Are they confident against even the lesser Greek heavy infantry in defensible positions, or is there a greater plan afoot? Starting the battle as the attackers, the Macedonians opted to fail their first order roll, clearly preferring a more deliberate, obvious advance towards their enemies. The cavalry followed this example and failed their order too, leaving the lighter Thracians to peel right. Archery fire from these mercenaries damaged and disordered some screening Greek peltasts. The first Greek turn seemed to mostly factor around using skirmishers to disrupt the Macedonian development. The slingers caused some very minor damage to the phalanx, but more notably the archers in the Thracian contingent were forced back in disorder. The Macedonian phalanx continued to trudge forward. This time the Thracians failed their orders. However, the cavalry shone, the light skirmishers pouncing forward to javelin the Greek lights, while the strike force formed in column alongside the edge of the table. Seeing the danger of being outflanked, the Greeks in the field started to divert their rear line, and it will be down to the dice whether or not they succeed in time. Meanwhile, the strategy of disrupting the more numerous opponent continued, showers of javelins and slingshot meeting the Macedonian advance, and causing the light cavalry to retreat in disorder. Finally unleashed, the Macedonian light cavalry lancers smashed into the Greek peltasts on the extreme right of the table. They'll be looking to sweep aside these light infantry quickly. The companions sought to move up in support and did so with aplomb. Elsewhere, the phalanx maintained its customary gait, however they startled the niggling javelinmen back behind the Greek mercenary hoplites, and the Thracians were now able to make use of the space they had to work with, moving forward to set up shots against exposed Greek skirmishers. And those shots tore the javelinmen apart, routing their unit. Meanwhile, the prodromoi crushed the peltasts, shattering them and causing them to be picked up without a break test. The victors then pressed on, and the Macedonian breakthrough was on. No longer willing to be idle spectators, the Greek mercenary line moved forwards towards the Macedonians. To their left, the Greek citizen contingent reorganised within the field, pulling their peltasts back in. The loss of one of these units being felt as much as a heavy hoplite unit in terms of army morale. As the next Macedonian turn commenced, it became clear what their plan was. Keep the Greek citizenry penned into the walled field with Thracians and light cavalry, while a mounted strike force circled from behind and struck the rear of the Greek mercenaries whilst they were busy with the sarissas. The army moved to achieve this end, the heavy infantry on both sides too close now to avoid brutal combat soon. Letting out a ferocious battle cry, the veteran Greeks charged the long pikes of the Macedonians, throwing their all into supporting this effort. After reorganising the Greeks in the field a little more, I moved on to the combat phase. The combat was a grind for the Macedonians, who came off the worst despite being backed up by a murderous giant kitty. The Macedonian turn continued the carnage, their infantry finding their fighting spirit and heavy damage inflicted on both sides. The support of the Hypaspids even provoked a disorderly pushback on the Greeks at the far end of the battle. The sweeping Macedonian cavalry have by now moved around the rear of the Greek lines that appeared on the scene. However, as the Greek turn commences, this is not the only surprise. At a prearranged signal of the two battle lines clashing, the Greeks deploy their cavalry division from the woods. The Greek cavalry tore out of cover, followed by more peltast skirmishers. They enveloped the Macedonian phalanx division, and in the ensuing combats, 2 pike blocks became shaken. Crucially though, neither were broken, and the deep end of the Macedonian line pushed back their counterparts yet again. The time, however, had come, and the Macedonian cavalry swept into the Greek mercenaries, creating a swirling combat from the hitherto arrayed battle lines. The Hypaspids detached themselves and about-face to return to the main battle, and the Thracians moved to counter the new Greek arrivals. These fearsome light infantry were out to prove that they could not be taken so lightly. The ensuing combat saw the complete destruction of the Greek mercenary veterans. The pure offensive power of the Macedonian cavalry on the rear of the Greek ranks routed everything they swept into, and even forced the Greek cavalry back in good order. After seeing such a display of power, and seeing the Macedonians reforming to address the threat to their rear afterwards, I determined to call an end to today's butchery. The remaining Greek infantry were still hemmed in and unable to operate offensively, while their cavalry had now lost that crucial element of surprise and would be easily outclassed by now. Overall, I'm pleased with how the game turned out. The Greeks could have got a better result if only their cavalry had arrived at a better time, and if the Macedonian sweep hadn't enjoyed such successful rolls. I'm happy with all the lovely new Macedonian army in its debut test drive as well, and look forward to using them against different opposition. I hope you enjoyed watching. I'm Warlord 100, and I'll see you next time.